going to do our spiel today on parasites. We entitled this, The Demons Within You That Can't Live Without You. It's a little bit on the creepy side, but it's information that I think you'll benefit from, and your eyes will be open to a large degree about a lot of different things if you already don't know it. Let's talk about why our laptop won't work. There we go. That works. What are parasites? Parasites are organisms that live in, on, or with another organism or host. They feed, grow, and multiply in a way that harms their host, and they need their host for their survival. For this reason, they rarely kill their host, but they often carry diseases that can be life-threatening. Now, there's 3 types of parasites. There's ectoparasites that live on the outside of the host. There's helminths, which are parasitic worms that usually live in your GI tract, but they can also live in the liver and the lungs. Then there's protozoans, one-celled organisms that you can't see without a microscope. They may live in your intestines or your blood and tissues. Interestingly enough, the smaller they are, technically, the more dangerous they are in many cases. So we'll get more into that. Now, the ectoparasites, a lot of those, of course, you know, and that's ticks and sandflies, fleas and chiggers, lice, and the tsetse fly. The sandflies are mainly down, I guess, on the Gulf, and do they have sandflies down the Amazon? Makes you wonder. I know that there's plenty of biting flies, and of course ticks. And ticks are the scary ones these days because you have so many people with Lyme disease and Rocky Mountain spotted fever as a result of the tick bites. But let's talk about the fleas, how fleas affect humans. Now, it's kind of strange that fleas can give tapeworms. You don't really think of a flea giving a human tapeworm, but they can only give you a tapeworm if you eat it. If the flea bites you, you can't get the tapeworm. So tapeworms are incredibly common in animals with fleas because they have so many fleas are infected with the parasite. And humans and pets become infected with tapeworms if they consume the affected flea. And more fleas you have in your home, the more likely it is that one may jump into your mouth, food, or drink. When would that be most likely? At night.
Sleeping.
Yeah, while you're asleep. Yeah, you think every time I sleep and my mouth is open, I wake up in the morning, I'm like, oh no, what did I eat last night? But you hope that not many things crawled in there, but definitely a flea could, if you live with animals especially. In most cases, tapeworms are passed naturally. However, if the tapeworms become big or are left untreated, you may experience nausea, fatigue, weight loss, vitamin deficiency, diarrhea, and weakness. Now, Bartonellosis is commonly referred to as cat scratch fever because it was often caused by cat scratches. If the cat's claws are infected with the Bartonella bacteria, it can spread to humans. However, there's evidence to show that this disease can be spread directly from fleas to humans if the flea bites you. For this reason, even if you don't have a cat, you're still at risk of catching cat scratch fever if you have fleas in the house at all. So symptoms are often flu-like. You may have a fever, fatigue, swollen lymph nodes.
Is that viral or bacterial? Do you know?
Bacterial.
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be bacterial. And here, speaking of bacterial, here's scabies. Microscopic scabies burrows into the upper layer of the skin where it lives, and it lays its eggs. And the most common symptoms of scabies are intense itching and a pimple-like rash. Chiggers are a mite that feeds on humans, and chigger bites aren't serious, but they can become infected, especially if you scratch them. That's a common one with the folks who are constantly out gathering herbs. Tick-borne illnesses. Now here's Lyme disease. Now, your tick-borne illnesses, they're pretty scary, and this sort of covers Lyme disease, but there are a lot of people who deal with Lyme disease in a very, very intense way, and it doesn't go away quick or ever. And so Lyme disease caused by Borrelia burgdorferi is a potentially serious bacterial infection that affects both humans and animals. It's the most common tick-borne disease reported in the United States. The typical symptoms include fever, headache, fatigue, and a characteristic skin rash. If Lyme disease continues to be left untreated, it can be established in various parts of the body over months or years after the initial infection. And symptoms include joint pain and swelling, and Lyme arthritis, a lot of inflammation in the body, throughout the body. A blood test is used to diagnose as well as the characteristic rash of the bite site, although the rash can look different, so it's not a definitive diagnostic tool. Little Brittany got bit had a tick bite, and it was a bad one. And she got sick a little while afterwards, and we got really concerned about it being, Lyme potentially, but it wasn't, thankfully. We hit her with the P77. Yes, ma'am.
Just so you know, you look at the tick bite target,
Mhm.
they're not always what you expect. I saw a young man, 20s, and his target was this large, went from shoulder to hip.
Oh, wow.
Head to shoulder.
Wow.
It was huge.
That's crazy. Yeah,
Not a tick bite over here someplace.
on his shoulder.
So look broader
Yeah.
sometimes if you need to.
It's wild. Yeah, and Lyme disease is terrible. It affects a lot of people. I mean, we seem to have a lot of people lately with Lyme disease coming to us. Here we have a little controversy. U.S. Pentagon is told to investigate claims that Lyme disease is an escaped bioweapon from the Cold War. Did the United States invent Lyme disease in the 1960s? The House aims to find out. Of course, they didn't. And the Pentagon may have released weaponized ticks that help spread Lyme disease. Investigation ordered. The story is that basically a bunch came over from Connecticut, and from an island of bioweapons or bio research lab that they had over outside of Connecticut, and that they were, that's the reason there's so many concentrated, basically going from Connecticut down into the Appalachians.
Connecticut, there is a lab there. It's a big jump to make, but
Yeah.
anything's possible. We'll never know.
Yeah, he'll never know. And the main thing is that it didn't exist prior to with any knowledge.
It did not.
No, that's the whole thing. Well, it didn't, not to any degree. They say it was weaponized or what have you in Connecticut. Once again, all that. The funny thing was how much information there was on that about 4 or 5 years ago online, and now you can find almost nothing, just nothing. Then Rocky Mountain spotted fever, another one. It's an infection from a tick bite that can be serious. In rare cases, it can lead to death. And despite the name, people can get the infection across the United States and other parts of North America and South America. Matter of fact, it's interesting because if you look over there toward the Rockies, there's none there. Spring and summer are the most likely times to get the infection. Of course, that's when the ticks are out in full force. Symptoms show up from 3 to 12 days after a tick bite. Symptoms include a severe headache and high fever. Most people also develop a rash a few days after the symptoms start. The rash first shows up on the wrist, the arms, and the ankles, and then they may spread. And other symptoms are swelling around the eyes and swelling on the backs of the hands. All right, here we go. Helminths, parasitic worms. Helminths are visible to the naked eye in their adult stage, and they range from greater than 1 millimeter to greater than 1 meter. The main types of helminths that affect people include roundworms. They can cause infection in the intestines of the body or throughout the body. Tapeworms infect the intestines primarily. And flukes, they can affect the bile ducts, liver, or the blood. Now, flukes are the scary ones. Well, they're all a little scary. Now, flukes, also known as trematodes, are a type of flatworm. They can spread through contaminated water or aquatic animals, including snails, crabs, and fish. And there are many types of flukes, and they may infect your blood, urinary, bladder, liver, lungs, intestines, and other organs. Like the intestines. Here's an intestinal fluke infection. People get intestinal fluke infections when they drink contaminated water or eat aquatic plants such as water chestnuts, or raw, undercooked, or salt-cured freshwater fish that contain fluke larvae. Usually intestinal fluke infections cause no or mild symptoms, but if the infection is severe, people may have abdominal pain, diarrhea, and fever. Sometimes the flukes prevent foods from being absorbed normally or block the intestine. Think about all the incidents of colon cancer that you have with individuals, and think about how many times cancer, of course, can be linked to parasitic infections. It's something that they got away from, and there was a lot of, like Hulda Clark was ridiculed for the concept of cancer being caused by parasites. But it's interesting because how long has cancer existed in humanity? Forever. How long have parasites existed in humanity? Right. How long has Monsanto been around? How long has 3M been around? Now I'm always harping on these companies for spreading cancer through all these environmental toxins, but the fact is cancer was around a long time before these entities. So, and we'll find later, we'll actually show some studies that do prove that, and have clinically shown that there are many cancers that are formed from parasites. But these flukes, I believe, are a cause of a lot of cancer that people aren't discovering. In other words, they could be rid of the cancer long before they have the cancer just by simply doing antiparasitics. Liver fluke infection. People are infected when they swallow cysts containing fluke larvae in raw, undercooked, dried, salt-cured, or pickled freshwater fish or contaminated aquatic plants. Depending on the infected species, the intensity of infection, people may have no symptoms at all, or fever, chills, abdominal discomfort, or pain, jaundice, itching, diarrhea, and weight loss. Long-term flukes can result in cancer. They can block bile ducts if they're allowed to flourish. And occasionally, liver flukes infect the wall of the intestine, the lungs, the skin, or the throat. Diagnosis includes seeing fluke eggs in a person's stool or in the contents of the intestine. Liver flukes can live up to 30 years in a human host. 30 years. Lung fluke infection. That makes you want to have a crawfish broil, doesn't it? People are infected when they swallow fluke larvae in raw, undercooked, or pickled freshwater crabs or crayfish. Diagnosis includes seeing eggs in a person's sputum or eggs from swallowed sputum and stool. The flukes may also travel to the brain, you heard that, the brain, liver, lymph nodes, skin, or spinal cord where they form cysts and produce eggs. Most infected people do not have symptoms, but those who do may have diarrhea, abdominal pain, fever, cough, and itching. Later, the infection damages the lungs the most, but it may affect other organs, including the skin. People slowly develop symptoms such as a chronic cough, chest pain, and difficulty breathing. If the brain's affected, people may have seizures, difficulty using or understanding language, or even problems seeing. Now, how about tapeworms? We discussed them a little earlier, but tapeworms are cestodes. Tapeworms are long, flat worms that live in the intestines, and they feed off of the nutrients that their host gets from eating food. Coffee doesn't taste as good during this for some reason. They spread by laying eggs in their host bodies. The eggs then leave the host body in their fecal matter, and then the eggs spread through the infected food and water or the undercooked meat. This discusses tapeworm infection. 6 types of tapeworms are known to infect people, and they're usually identified by the animals that they come from: fish, beef, and pork. Tapeworms lay eggs in the animal's muscle tissue. It's also possible to contract tapeworms from foods prepared by an infected person, because tapeworm eggs are passed with bowel movements. A person who doesn't wash their hands well can contaminate the food. That's why we have the signs in the restrooms at the restaurants. A lot of people notice no symptoms, but the most common symptoms include lack of appetite, abdominal pain, upset stomach, nausea, weight loss, fatigue and weakness, passing tapeworm parts in the stool. Okay, next we have roundworms. Roundworms are small parasites that live in your intestines. They spread from infected feces or soil. There are many types of roundworms, which include pinworms, whipworms, and hookworms. So let's talk about pinworms. Now, this is one that a lot of kids get. Pinworm infection is the most common roundworm infection in the United States, and it's estimated that in some regions of the country, 1/3 of the children are infected. Pinworm infections are contagious, and the worms get into the body when people swallow the tiny pinworm eggs. The eggs can be on contaminated hands, under fingernails, and on things people touch a lot, such as clothing, bed linens, and towels. The eggs hatch inside the host's digestive tract and then develop into adults. The adults migrate to the colon and lay eggs in the rectal region, and despite the high prevalence, enterobiasis is not a dangerous disease. The primary symptom is an itching in the rectal region. Once again, kids have this a lot. And then what was interesting, we had a physician when we had a patient who had a kid with pinworms, went to the doctor, and the doctor said that it had been eradicated in the United States.
Pinworms didn't exist.
Yeah, they just didn't exist. And yet, literally, I mean, like 1/3 of all kids are infected.
Here's the sample.
Yeah, it was amazing.
It's like Ron went to the doctor after a tick bite, and the doctor at Zeeland Hospital told him Lyme's disease does not exist in the state of Michigan. Come back when you have symptoms. Not if, but when.
Oh my gosh.
His head exploded. Then my head exploded. Yes, I'm sorry.
Ascariasis, caused by the roundworm Ascaris lumbricodes. It occurred, don't you love this slide? Sorry about that. Actually, she did it, not me. It occurs worldwide and is believed to infect up to 25% of the world's population. The infection occurs when the eggs are consumed and hatch in the intestines. This can happen when hands or fingers have contaminated dirt on them or put in the mouth by consuming vegetables or fruits that have not been carefully cooked, washed, or peeled. The larvae mature into adulthood in the intestines and attach to the intestinal wall. Early infections usually do not have any symptoms. When the infections progressed, symptoms include malnutrition and bowel obstruction. This roundworm feeds on digested material in the host intestine, similar to a tapeworm. Not to be outdone, we have hookworm infections. Now this one, oftentimes down in the feet, hookworm larvae penetrate the skin when people walk barefoot and come into direct contact with infested soil. In humans, larvae of the hookworm travel through the bloodstream to the lungs, penetrate the air sacs, ascend to the throat, and are swallowed and then mature in the intestines. Infections may be asymptomatic, but rash may appear at the site of the larval penetration, and pulmonary involvement may cause cough and wheezing. Intestinal involvement may cause iron deficiency, anemia, diagnosed by microscopic examination of the stool. Now how about...
In the stool, but how does it comes in through the feet?
It comes in through the feet.
Okay.
Yeah, and a lot of times you'll have an itching down at your ankle, down at the insides of your ankle, and then you can sometimes even see down in the ankle, even though it spreads throughout the body. So and it ends up in the lungs. Whipworm infection. People acquire the infection by eating foods contaminated with soil that contains whipworm eggs or by swallowing eggs after having contact with contaminated soil. The eggs hatch in the small intestine, migrate to the large intestine, and embed their heads in the lining of the intestine. Each larva grows into a worm that's about 4.5 inches long and is estimated to live 1 to 2 years. Female whipworms produce eggs which are excreted in the stool. People may have no symptoms or may have abdominal pain, loss of appetite, diarrhea, bleeding from the intestine, anemia, or all that's depending on the severity of the infection. Diagnosis consists of identifying the eggs in a stool sample, and adequate sanitation and good personal hygiene help to prevent the spread of the infection. Then we have whipworm, trichinosis. Humans become infected by eating raw, undercooked, or underprocessed meat from animals, most commonly pigs and wild animals, including deer, moose, elk, boar, bear, walrus, and many birds. Yeah, who had walrus lately? No. That have whipworm cysts in the muscle tissue. Once in the small intestine, the cysts attach and grow into mature worms in as few as 6 days. Mature females release living larvae for 4 to 6 weeks and then are expelled. Newborn larvae migrate into the striated skeletal muscle cells. They form cysts in the muscle tissue, and they can survive in the body for up to 2 years. Symptoms begin with gastrointestinal irritation, followed by puffiness and swelling around the eyes, muscle pain, fever, and increased white blood count. Manifestations gradually resolve by about the 3rd month when the larva have become cysts in the muscle tissue, although vague muscular pains and fatigue may persist. Diagnosis requires a blood test, and thoroughly cooking meat from pigs and wild animals can prevent trichinosis. Now, not to be outdone with all of these, we have the protozoans. Protozoans are one-celled organisms. You can't see them without a microscope. They may live in your intestines or your blood and tissues. They may spread through contaminated food or water, person-to-person contact, or through the bite of a mosquito, tick, or other vector. There are tens of thousands of different types of protozoans. Experts classify them according to how they move, and the main types that affect people include amoeba, ciliates, flagellates, and sporozoans. Let's talk about the amoeba. The amoeba form temporary false feet, pseudopods, to move, and the amoeba E. histolica causes dysentery. Now let's talk about amoebic dysentery. Infection occurs when you eat or drink something that the parasite E. histolica has contaminated. Now you can also get the parasite in your system if you touch a surface containing the parasite's eggs and then put your fingers in your mouth. So many problems come from people putting their hands in their mouths or touching their eyes or touching their soft tissue with their dirty hands. And of course, a lot of people will overwash their hands and they'll abuse like antibacterial soaps and that sort of thing. And a lot of those antibacterial soaps not only work against, becoming immune to future bacteria, but they also cause endocrine disruption in a lot of cases. So you got to be careful overwashing, but underwashing is bad too. And then once you put your hand in your mouth, you're really in a mess. Amoebic dysentery usually spreads through contact with feces, and not everyone who has been affected gets sick. You might not have any symptoms, especially when you're first infected. You may develop symptoms within 4 weeks after the infection. Symptoms include cramping, diarrhea, loose stools, sometimes with rectal bleeding, fever, and nausea. And it can live in your intestines for a long time, even if you don't develop symptoms. Now, ciliates. They use many short hair-like structures to move and gather food. B. coli is the only ciliate that affects humans, and it causes ballot dialysis. Not as common in the United States, but prevalent in the Philippines, Latin America, and in the Middle East. I don't even think they have it in South America. Now you have ballantidiasis, microscopic parasite that can infect humans and pigs as a host. It forms cysts in the host stool. The cyst is acquired by the host through contaminated food and water. So much of this is through contaminated food and water. That's one of the only ways we get sick when we go down to South America. It's not normally the water we drink, but it's what the food is prepared in, the water that they prepare the food in. Some infected people may have no symptoms or only mild diarrhea and abdominal discomfort, but others may experience more severe symptoms similar to amoebic dysentery. Prevention, purifying of drinking water and proper food handling are important. Let's talk about the flagellates again. They use one or many whip-like structures to move and sense their surroundings. And the flagellate Giardia intestinalis causes gardiasis, and Trypsinoma cruzi causes chaga. Now, I've had Giardia before, and it's not fun. I had it actually the last trip that we took down, and we did great all the way to the last day, and then we'd given away our P77. We had eaten, what they call it? Okay, literally they kept saying, you're going to have a typical jungle meal before you leave. And I'm like, well, I thought that's what we've been having, typical jungle meals. No, there's actually something called typical jungle meal. And they take some sort of leaf, right? And they take some rice, and they take a chicken leg, then they take an egg, a raw egg, and they crack it, and they put all this into the leaf, and then they steam the leaf, right? But then they leave it overnight. Then you eat it the next day. Yeah, then things got weird. Well, about 2 days later, we were, of course, without anything other than an airport and a pharmacy at the airport, and it hits me like a ton of bricks, and we know it's Giardia. I mean, it's just every symptom. And there we are at the airport. We don't have anything to use. Thankfully, at the airports in Lima, they don't require a prescription for anything. So we got some Flagyl, which is just a dirt probiotic, and it's a bacteria, I should say. Flagyl is just a bacteria, but anyway, I took the Flagyl, and was better before we even left Lima. Actually, it was a little better. It was still horrible. Better enough. That's what it was. Parasitic infection that occurs worldwide is the most common parasitic infection in the intestine in the United States. Glad I wasn't rare. Giardia protozoa can form an outer shell called a cyst, enabling them to survive outside the body for long periods of time in lakes and streams, and makes them less likely to be killed by chlorine in swimming pools. These cysts are passed in stool. Poorly filtered municipal water supply systems contribute to some outbreaks, and most people acquire the infection from drinking contaminated water, eating contaminated food, or having contact with stool from an infected person. Boiling water kills the parasite, and it's the safest way for hikers to ensure that water from streams and lakes is safe to drink. Giardia is usually diagnosed by symptoms, but a stool test can also diagnose. Symptoms include stomach cramps, bloating, nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea. Now, how about Chagas disease? Look at those little kissing bugs. Don't they look just adorable up there? Notice that these things seem to like, and a lot of these parasites really like the equator. They like warmer, more humid climates. Michigan literally gets undoubtedly a pass here, but I'm guessing that there's some outbreaks here and there. A parasite called Trypsinoma cruzi causes Chagas disease. The parasite is in the feces of the triatome bug or kissing bug. If the kissing bug feces enters someone's body, you wonder how the bug feces enters your body, but it does, obviously, because people get infected.
They call it a kissing bug because while you're asleep, it flies onto your face.
Yeah. And it poops on your face. No, it's not the stink bug. Thankfully, no. We haven't figured out anything the stink bugs do adverse yet, other than look creepy and smell funny. Yeah, exactly. The kissing bug feces enters someone's body. The parasite can infect the person and cause Chagas disease. The parasite can also enter the body through the mouth or eye if someone touches their mouth or eye with a dirty hand. This really makes you want to sleep with some sort of like motion detector for your face when you sleep at night.
Well, and I'm thinking my outdoor deck furniture is probably covered in this feces. And I sit there and I have an illness and I get up there and I
Yeah.
rub my nose and I rub my eye.
The main thing is just to not rub your face. You can get as infected with some of this stuff, except for the roundworms, as you want to, but just don't touch your face, and that's a problem for a lot of people. A mother with Chagas disease can pass the disease to her baby while she's pregnant, and the parasite can be passed through blood and organ donations, and through food or drink contaminated with kissing bug feces. After the T. cruzi parasite enters the body, the acute phase can last for a few weeks or months. During the acute phase, some people experience symptoms like fever, tiredness, body aches, headache, rash, diarrhea, loss of appetite, or vomiting. Some people do not notice any symptoms. Chronic Chagas disease can lead to more serious issues such as cancer. 60% of all tested kissing bugs are shown positive for the parasite T. cruzi. That means they need to be stomped. I just don't think I'd want one of those living anywhere near me so it doesn't poop in my mouth at night. Now, how about sporozoans? In their adult stage, sporozoans aren't capable of moving. They eat their food the host is digesting and the host body fluids, or their host body fluids. The sporozoan Plasmodium causes malaria, and Toxoplasma gondii causes toxoplasmosis. T. gondii, T. gondii, we've done entire presentations on T. gondii. Disturbing presentations. Malaria. Now, who here in this room has had malaria before? Yep.
My great Aunt Louise had it in Calcutta in World War II.
Wow.
And still had symptoms of it every year or two.
Wow.
Into her 90s. She got it in 95.
Wow. That's, it can hide in the liver. She had P. vivax malaria, contracted it in South America, in Peru. I was having Cambo. Actually, we know exactly when she was infected because we were in the only part of Iquitos where there is malaria. It's near where the biolab is, of course, the United States biolab. And she was infected while I was having Cambo applied. Cambo is a vaccine or they call it a jungle vaccine, preventative for malaria. So I didn't get it. She did get it, and oh my goodness, 105.1 degree temperature. It was really rough.
So you recommend the vaccines?
No.
This was an herbal vaccine while they were in South America.
Yeah.
Not an injectable vaccine, but
No.
an herbal vaccine.
Right.
But now it's pills. I mean, you have if you're gonna go.
Oh no. We don't. We just take quinine prior to, and then we have artemisinin or artemisia, a really strong artemisia. That's actually what ended up knocking it out of her was the artemisia.
And every time we go, we have the Cambo medicine just to keep us from.
Cambo is a
Don't worry about it unless you're in one of those red countries.
yeah. If you're not in the red country, you don't want to. But if you go down there, and then there's areas where we go where we know that there is malaria and where there is in our village where we have our retreat center, there is no malaria, except for the time that you went there. Whoops. I'm glad that you weren't bit by many mosquitoes then. Malaria is still endemic to 85 countries. If you notice, it follows the equator, just right along the equator. There are 5 Plasmodium species that infect humans, and they're transmitted by mosquitoes. Almost half the world's population is at risk of malaria. Malaria is endemic to Africa, India, and other areas of South Asia, Southeast Asia, North and South Korea, Mexico, Central America, Haiti, the Dominican Republic, South America, along with northern parts of Argentina, and the Middle East, including Turkey, Syria, Iran, and Iraq, and Central Asia. Malaria once was endemic to the United States, and currently about 1,500 cases occur in the United States each year. You were one of the 1,500, honey. Nearly all are acquired abroad, but a small number result from blood transfusions or from transmission by local mosquitoes that feed on infected immigrants or returning travelers. We kept you away. We kept her quarantined after we got home. Once an infected mosquito bites a human, the parasite is released into the bloodstream. It multiplies rapidly, destroying red blood cells and damaging the liver with cysts. Incubation periods range from 8 days to over a year or more. Some people who have malaria experience cycles of malaria attacks. An attack happens every 48 hours and usually starts with shivering and chills, followed by high fever, followed by sweating and a return to normal temperature. The attack typically lasts between 8 and 12 hours. Causes headaches and chills and sweating and dry cough and spleen enlargement, nausea, vomiting, pain, and fatigue, muscular fatigue. And it's interesting, when she had it, one day she would have 105.1 degree temperature, and we would be emptying the freezer on her. The next day she would have a 98 degree temperature, which was still elevated, so we knew it wasn't gone, elevated for her. And so it was a way for us to kind of track it, but it was very deceptive. It makes you think everything's okay, and then the attacks. She even had a flare-up one time because we used a lot of peppermint oil. We used some peppermint oil in the motorhome, and we're confined tight to the space, and the peppermint oil undoubtedly caused a liver response, and it caused those little boogers to kick in. So it's pretty wild stuff. All right, T. Gandhi. Anybody ever heard of T. Gandhi? I know you have because you've been around us, but T. Gandhi is an interesting parasite. What if I told you that there's a parasite that 66% of the population had in their brain right now? Like, chances are one of us in here has either had it or has it. Okay. Then that this particular parasite, even in the cyst stage, can actually alter human activity, can alter your mind, and can actually change your behavior. Okay, so that's what we're talking about here. And also, this particular parasite has been found in Egyptian mummies and other mummies across the globe. That's how old the parasite is. It's the oldest known and probably one of the most researched parasites that we have. And it's also the reason that they don't want women messing with litter boxes while they're pregnant. It's because of toxoplasmosis. So an estimated 66% of the world is infected with the parasite right now. The parasite is transmitted in cat feces, which you wouldn't think would be an easy way to get something, but think about how many cats we have. Humans, pigs, lamb, and cow are primarily infected. The parasite sets up cysts in muscle, brain, and eye tissue in the host. Humans can get the parasite from directly inhaling the parasite while scooping litter boxes, eating raw or undercooked meat that contains the parasite cyst, ingesting the parasites from contaminated soil, blood transfusions, and pregnant moms can give it to their unborn babies. Cysts can last in the body in the dormant state in your entire lifetime. It stays in the body forever, unless you get rid of it. Studies have shown that T. Gandhi cysts cause these possible side effects. Now listen to this. Not lack of consciousness, lack of conscientiousness. A parasite in the brain that can cause you to be less conscientious. In other words, more of a sociopath, someone who doesn't care as much about other people's feelings. They've actually shown links to T. Gandhi causing that. Aggression and impulsiveness. So now you're an angry, aggressive person who lacks conscientiousness. Male reproductive impairment. So now you have low libido, and now you know why they're frustrated. Infected people were perceived as more attractive and healthy. Okay, this is a messed up study, but they've done it more than once. In this study, they took normal people who weren't affected with T. Gandhi. They sat them in a group. I think they sat them individually. They showed them pictures and images of people who had T. Gandhi and people who didn't have T. Gandhi. And of those pictures, across the board, the people who were infected with T. Gandhi looked more attractive to the people who didn't have T. Gandhi. Isn't that crazy? You think about how somebody can be puffed up mentally, and they can carry, just the difference in me standing here like this and the difference in me standing here like this. Well, one, I kind of look like a jerk, but anyway, but the confidence level that a person has and how they carry themselves, especially day after day and month after month, can directly impact their attractiveness. What they wear, how they do their hair, how much time they take to get ready, all those things and so that just shows this strange propensity with this particular parasite. It gives people also a decreased fear response. So now these people are the bigger risk takers. Actually, studies show that people who have T. Gandhi cyst are more likely to be entrepreneurs, more likely to take business risk and jump out of airplanes with parachutes and that sort of thing. It also, one of the side effects can be cancer of the eye, the brain, the blood, and the breast. Now that one's not as fun. A phobia of anything new or unfamiliar. Which is weird because that kind of contradicts the other, which also it also gives you more of a propensity to have traffic accidents, to kill someone, and to kill yourself. Now the traffic accident, actually there was a study they did in Turkey, and they showed that people who had T. Gandhi were way more likely to have road rage than people who didn't have T. Gandhi. I guess that's the risk-taking behavior. Toxoplasmosis is the infection stage of Toxoplasma gondii. And when the cysts become an active infection, we call it toxoplasmosis. Acute infection is usually asymptomatic, but 10 to 20% of patients develop flu-like symptoms, fever, feeling unwell, body aches, liver and spleen enlargement, and inflamed lymph nodes. Other symptoms include headache, seizures, lack of coordination, blurred vision, and jaundice. Severe cases can lead to death. Toxoplasmosis is actually often misdiagnosed as multiple sclerosis. And because so many physicians are not in a position where they understand toxoplasmosis or Toxoplasma gondii or parasites or care about parasites or won't even discuss parasites, it just gets overlooked. And so that's a huge, they'll actually show the brain scans and they'll show lesions on the brain of people who have Toxoplasma gondii, and people who have MS will have the exact same lesions on the brain. We wonder how many times it gets misdiagnosed. I bet it's a lot.
Or is it causing MS?
Exactly. So many diseases. So many diseases. Now, I'm sorry for this slide. That's a gross slide. How do we free ourselves from these monsters? First, we move on from that slide. That's how we freed ourselves from that slide. That's the shock factor slide. Natural treatments for parasites. All right. There's a few things. We have the common ones we call them common. A lot of people don't know about them, but it's the wormwood, which is Artemisia, cloves, clove buds, and black walnut hulls, which really they use the green black walnut hulls, or the green walnut hulls from the black walnut tree. That combination is sort of the old tried and true method. People who take them in capsules, people will take them in tinctures. Tinctures normally are stronger. Capsules need to be taken, make sure that you take them before you eat or on an empty stomach for them to be most effective with parasites. Those are the three most traditional ones. Also, berberine containing plants like yellowroot, Oregon grape, barberry, yellow dock, and golden seal. Berberine actually helps repair the blood-brain barrier, and there's a reason that those little cysts from the Toxoplasma gondii get to the brain. How do they get to the brain, and how do they bypass our blood-brain barrier? They actually take a ride and they hide as immune cells, don't they? They run through with your T cells, and they can actually hitch a ride into your brain. But the damage that's done from that process can be actually rebuilt because berberine has been shown to help repair the blood-brain barrier. So it's pretty neat that you can actually repair the blood-brain barrier. Cinnamon has been shown to have anti-parasitic properties. Black seed oil or black cumin seed oil is tremendous. I think that it's one of the most important new supplements. I say it's not really a new supplement, but it's getting popular now, a lot higher in popularity. But black seed oil, I have a testimony of the time that I took, the first time I ever took black seed oil. You're supposed to take 3 teaspoons in a day. Okay, so I took 3 tablespoons at one time, and it was really shocking what happened after that. About a half hour later, I actually passed blood flukes. Blood flukes, a half an hour. Flukes, yeah. I've had 30 years of experience in this field, and I've been doing this all these years, taking antiparasitics here and there. I took 3 tablespoons of black seed oil and was shocked. I don't recommend taking 3 tablespoons unless, of course, you're ready to stay near the restroom, but it's fine because I was very happy to have gotten rid of what I got rid of, to say the least. But, 3 teaspoons, they're taken long enough. If you're taking it long enough, it should do the same difference. Carvacrol, or oregano oil. Thymol, which comes from thyme. Papaya seed, ginger. And you can also add raw garlic, pumpkin seeds, pomegranates, beets, and carrots to your daily diet. Here's a little study talking about wormwood and malaria, how artemisinin are derived from extracts of sweet wormwood and are well established for the treatment of malaria, including highly drug-resistant strains. This is cinchona bark and malaria. What do we get from cinchona? Quinine. We get our quinine from cinchona. And supposedly there was a native who had malaria and was running a fever, had jumped in one of the, a body of water because it was very cool and cold. But he took a swallow of the water when he jumped in. But then he started feeling better. And so he took the medicine man down to the water showed the medicine man. The medicine man noticed that a cinchona tree had fallen into the water and was just steeping in the water like a tea. The water was actually discolored like the cinchona. And so that's when the first study of using cinchona bark for malaria was, and then supposedly that's been used since wildfire since then. Now what's interesting is where we're from, the cinchona or quinine, they become a little bit resistant, I think, supposedly, even though the quinine seemed to work for us as a preventative. There's some controversy in that. But here it talks about the history of cinchona bark in the treatment of malaria. Actually, it's been researched in all the way since the 1660s in England. So that's quite a long time. Now here's P77. P77 is a combination of Artemisia, carvacrol, beta-pinene from pine extract, and hemp seed oil. And when we go down to a ketose, we bring cases of this with us so that we can leave it with them. And it works against malaria, works against the dengue, works against COVID, of course, very well. And any virus, basically, it's very effective for. But they also use it as an antiparasitic. We had a case where we were at a hotel in a ketose in the city, and this man came. It was the grandfather of a tuk-tuk driver that she nearly stabbed to death. That's another story. And so by the time, good thing we didn't stab him to death. We actually paid for his gallbladder surgery later. But anyway, the guy's name was Anthony. But he brought his grandfather over. Actually, his father. It was his father, and his grandfather was there too. His grandfather was a shaman. And brought the whole family into the lobby of the hotel. And the father, it was really sad. He had basically a baseball-sized tumor on the side of his neck. And what was shocking, though, was that morning they had said that he had so many parasites, he had coughed up parasites that morning. Yeah. And he was in so much pain. The only reason he even cared was because he was having trouble going to church. And that's all he wanted to do was go to church without being in pain. So I think it was about 3 weeks later the church came to him. They went and had church in his little shack in a ketose. It was really sweet. But yeah, it was really sad also to watch his decline. All right. Now talking about the Bartonellosis treatment, oregano, cinnamon, clove bud, and allspice have highly potent activities against both the long phase and the stationary phase. Black seed oil killing flukes and their eggs, which, did we do this before or after my incident? I think we did it before.
Yeah, I can't actually.
Isn't that interesting? C. cinnamon oil was effective in the in vitro treatment of F. hepatica trematode, and its efficacy was observed at all concentrations tested in the eggs and in the inactivation of adults. This is where it's talking about its effectiveness against liver flukes. Black seed oil and curcumin kills flukes. Fasciola gigantica is a common fluke causing infection. Black seed oil and curcumin have shown to inhibit the fluke's mobility, disrupt its membrane, and suppress the gene that allows the fluke to search for food, ultimately killing the fluke. A lot of times these antiparasitics will destroy like the cell walls or the protective agents that these parasites have, and allows your body to kill them more effectively. Here's wormwood killing tapeworms. All tested concentrations of PZQ in A. absinthe extract resulted in an initial spastic contraction of the adult worms within 10 to 30 seconds after exposure, followed by paralysis and then mortality of the treated worms at variable durations. Here's an article on tribulus. Tribulus terrestis is an herb. Kind of interesting. That one's used a lot for, I guess, men's testosterone. It's also used for women's testosterone in some cases to help balance that out. But this is a neat little study that talks about tribulus killing roundworms. And then also, how about rutin? Rutin we often use for sciatica and for issues with nerve pain and nerve injury. It's a citrus bioflavonoid, and here it is talking about its antiparasitic use. And then what about head lice? A head lice treatment. This is a neat little treatment because it uses a variety of herbs. It's not just absolutely dead set on using specific herbs. Some herbs are insecticides and will not only kill certain bugs but also repels them. You grind up a combination of these herbs into a powder, and then you make a mud mask for your head by calming them with a small amount of water or raw apple cider vinegar. Apply thickly to the scalp and hair, cover with a shower cap, and then leave on for 1 to 2 hours before rinsing out. Rinse with raw apple cider vinegar and comb through the hair with a knit comb. Some herbs that are great to use in this herbal hair pack are neem, rosemary, peppermint, sage, thyme, cinnamon, lemongrass, lemon peel powder, orange peel powder, and lavender. How about a scabies treatment? Right? Clove oil. Basically just a little bit of clove oil and some palm oil. So you just dilute a little bit of clove oil in the palm oil and then just use it topically. And it works pretty fast. What about chiggers? Chiggers is just such an ancient sounding word. And then I think about Tommy Bass, so we put a picture of Tommy Bass there making some bass salve. Immediately shower or clean the area with warm or cold water. This will remove any chiggers still on the skin. They don't burrow into the skin, so that's not true. Apply the Tommy Bass salve to the spots and just resist scratching. And eventually it'll take care of it.
What is that contraption Tommy's on there?
What's that?
Is that a mini stove of some sort?
It's an old stove. I think Daryl has that stove still. That's where he would cook his salve.
So if you don't have any Tommy Bass salve, is there another kind of salve that would?
Several. Any salve that's used on open wound. Anything safe enough to use on an open wound.
I saw that.
Yeah. Yeah, you can get Maggie to hook you up.
You sell his salve at your store?
You can only get it from one man. And that man blows around like the wind. He was here yesterday, and he's probably in Alabama today. He blows away, but Daryl makes that sound. Now, this is an article talking about black seed oil killing T. gondii cysts. Now, you're not going to find anything that shows that it kills T. gondii cysts other than this right here. It's pretty amazing. And then this is thyme and T. gondii. Now, this is T. gondii infection or toxoplasmosis. Actually, this is in toxoplasmosis. This talks about thyme helping with toxoplasmosis, rosemary terpenes, and oregano for toxoplasmosis, helping, according to the studies. And then here we have some studies about parasites and cancer. One over here on the right talks about bile duct cancer and liver fluke infections. And over here we have liver fluke associated biliary tract cancer. Here we have a study talking about toxoplasmosis contributing to breast cancer. There's also studies showing toxoplasmosis can contribute to prostate cancer, which is really interesting. It doesn't seem to discriminate at all. So, how do we prepare for battle? One of the first things is to figure out a good plan for a parasite cleanse. And a lot of people will do a parasite cleanse, once or twice a year. For us, going to South America, we do it more often simply because it's pretty important to make sure that we're cleansed before we go and after we go. P77, which is the combination of Artemisia, carvacrol, and beta-pinene. Carvacrol by itself, which is oregano oil. Artemisia, which is also called wormwood, and there's various forms of wormwood, but any sweet wormwood works. Once again, we have the clove buds down there, which is, we talk about clove and the Artemisia, the wormwood, and also the black walnut. There's black walnut up there. Sage and tribulus, cinnamon and lemongrass. Paraclean is a combination of the black walnut, cloves, and wormwood. The thyme and rosemary, berberine, palm oil, apple cider vinegar, peppermint, neem, black walnut we mentioned again, ginger, turmeric or curcumin, garlic, lavender, rutin, allspice, and papaya seed. Now, one of the things too that we talk about is fire cider. Have you heard of fire cider? Fire cider is amazing, and it has probably about 6 of these ingredients in it, or the standard fire cider will have it. So a fire cider by itself can be anti-parasitic, even with just the apple cider vinegar base that's in it. So that's a good one as well. Doing a parasite cleanse is imperative. I was very happy to have shocked my system with that, the black cumin, the black seed oil. Doing something like that with doing a paraclean with the Artemisia, the wormwood, the cloves, the black walnut, and then adding the black seed oil a lot of times will help push things through. It is a battle because, think about the Civil War. You know, I mean, you have these fields, and they were perfect fields. There was nothing going on. All of a sudden, you had the North and South shooting each other, bullets flying. You know, turmoil. The earth was havoc. Think about the idea of you having these parasites within you. They've taken root. They've taken hold. They're doing their thing. They're using you and manipulating your body for their needs. So now you're going to have to get rid of them. Well, if you have this battle within you, it's not going to be normally a little easy paradise. It's not going to be something that's smooth with no issues. So a lot of people will stop their parasite cleanse because they'll have gastrointestinal issues, they'll feel bad, they'll feel sick, but that's what's going to happen sometimes when you are doing a cleanse. You have to get worse sometimes before you get better, and you have to create some instability to get rid of the things to start with. Sometimes you need that 3 tablespoons of black seed oil to really get in there and shock those things and to kill them in the right way. So it's preparing for battle is important, and having a plan is important. And I dare say, what's interesting with Toxoplasma gondii is the people that I've noticed that I feel like really actually have T. gondii, and you can tell by every bit of how they act and a lot about their health. The people that I meet that have it don't want any part of getting rid of it. They don't want to admit that they have it. They don't want to admit that they even could possibly have it. So normally those are the people that have it. And I think that same cyst that's communicating with them to do all these narcissistic type behaviors and sociopathic behaviors is also telling them, hey, don't get rid of me. You know, we're enjoying our time here. So here's the way that you can follow us. We can go to Facebook, St. John's Nutrition. There's us and some young lady who does yoga. She calls herself St. John's Nutrition also. I guess that's her last name too. Then you go to YouTube to Dr. Matt and Deborah St. John. We have a bunch of our YouTube stuff put up there, our videos about the jungle and all that. Website's stjohnsnutrition.com, and then there's our phone number and our address of our retail location where we do a lot of our manufacturing as well. But that's ways that you can follow us. But thank y'all for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think we've got one more today.